Hi, good morning. I'm Rabbi Stuart Weinblatt, and in 1 week from today, on November 5th, Americans will exercise one of our most precious and sacred rights and privileges, and that is when we quadrennially choose who will lead our nation for the next 4 years. Actually, a number of people have already started to make that decision and have been voting, and the stakes are high as they always are, both for our country as well as for Israel. And for those of us who care about the fate of the Jewish state, which presumably is most everybody on this call, we are following the candidates, their statements and policies with heightened interest. I once said to an editor of a newspaper that I think Jews read the newspaper like we read the way we read the Talmud. And so we similarly follow elections very closely. And with this election being so very close, especially in swing states, the Jewish vote could be critical and could actually make the difference between who gets elected. And so today, as well as on Wednesday, the Zionist Rabbinic Coalition, which is the multi-denominational, nonpartisan voice of Zionist rabbis and our supporters, is proud to present an opportunity for rabbis and our friends to hear from senior representatives of the Harris and Trump campaigns. We'll be posting this online so people who can't attend the call will be able to hear as well, as part of our mission of promoting understanding, unity, and cooperation between the Jewish communities of Israel and the diaspora. I want to now introduce our guest, and we are very privileged today to have Ambassador Tom Nides speaking on behalf of the Harris Walls team. Tom is well known to many of us and is a friend to many. He has a career in both Wall Street as well as in government, having served as Deputy Secretary of State under President Obama, and he was awarded the nation's highest diplomatic honor by Secretary of State Hillary Clinton for his service. Most of us came to know Tom as U.S. Ambassador to Israel for the Biden administration between 2021 and 2023. And it was at that time that I got to know Ambassador Nides and came to see firsthand his commitment to Israel, to Judaism, the Jewish people, and to the American-Israel relationship. I just want to add one other thing of a personal note, and that is that after completing his service as U.S. Ambassador to Israel, Tom came back to pursue the other part of his career, and that is on Wall Street. But after a few weeks working there, and after October 7th, he put everything on hold because he decided, and I was in a meeting where I heard him speak, that he was going to commit himself during that very difficult time after October 7th to Israel and to the American-Israel relationship. Tom, I just think that said so much about you and about your integrity and character, and thank you for that. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give Ambassador Nides an opportunity now to speak, to present the case for Kamala Harris, and after that, I'm going to be asking questions, primarily those that have been sent to me by people who were interested in the call.
Rabbi, thank you very much. I'm honored, and I'm sure many of the rabbis and lay leaders who are on this call, I know you and seen you, so I'm honored to be it. For those of you who don't know me, I am a little Jewish kid from Minnesota, the youngest of 8 kids, and a proud Zionist. I didn't grow up being a rabbi. I didn't grow up even thinking I was going to be, I assure you, the American ambassador to Israel, but I came by it the natural way. My father was the president of our temple and the head of the UJA. My mother was the head of Hadassah and Sisterhood. For me, being a Jew was getting involved, being part of a community. It was supporting not only Israel and the importance of a Jewish, democratic Jewish state, but also about being a Jew in my soul, in my kishkas, about including people and being part of the larger conversation in the world. So let me just give you kind of my elevator pitch without a pitch, because I don't think I need to sell anyone. But let me just say, I'm a big believer actions speak louder than words. Okay, that's just who I am. For those of you who know me, yes, I've spent half my career on Wall Street, so I know how to make money. I also know how to work in the government. Okay, I worked on Capitol Hill, I worked in the White House, I worked in the State Department, obviously was the ambassador. I just returned last night at 1 o'clock in the morning, having flown up to Pittsburgh with the second gentleman, Doug Emhoff. He asked me to come with him to go to the Tree of Life's memorial. It wasn't really a memorial, it was the anniversary. The day before was the anniversary of the worst massacre of Jews in the United States at a synagogue, as you all know, and many of you probably know many of the individuals who suffered from that. He asked me to come because he was going to give a speech, his closing speech on fighting anti-Semitism. That, my friends, is the second gentleman of the United States, okay? A Jew, just like me, just like you, asking another guy, another Jew, to come to Pittsburgh so he could do his closing argument, not on anything else, but on the fighting the scourge of anti-Semitism. And then we had a roundtable with many of the family members who lost their parents and grandparents at the synagogue that tragic day, including some of the individuals who survived that crisis. Okay, I just put that as a real life what I just did. Okay, like 3 hours ago. So I'm a kind of a like show me the money kind of guy. So let me just say 4 points. One, obviously, no one on this call will argue that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have not been the most pro-Israel administration. And again, put my nonsense that I'm a Democrat, put that all aside, okay? That just think about what Joe Biden has done over the last 4 years in support of Israel, including being there in Israel 4 days after the tragedy of October 7th. Every step of the way, this administration has supported the state of Israel. Every step of the way, including, last Friday on Shabbat, where the missile defense systems were sent 7 days earlier to make sure when Israel was going to do the attack on Iran, that we had the defense systems on the ground, including our ships in the Mediterranean. Our focus to send a message to Iran: don't kid yourself, we've got your back. And to be clear, Joe Biden was at the elbow of Joe Biden was Kamala Harris. If any of us think that Joe Biden would have it any other way, to have her part of every single conversation, when Joe Biden says you don't need to be a Jew to be a Zionist, he is saying that on behalf of him and his vice president. Second, you say, okay, well, that's interesting, Tom, but she's not the president. She's the vice president. Is she really going to be good on Israel? Is she a little soft on Israel? She's made some comments. I say, wait a minute. Okay, let's take the facts then. So in the opportunities that she was in charge of, that she, not Joe Biden, she was in charge of. Number one, the convention. For any of you who understand how these conventions, the people who go to these conventions, both on the Republican side and the Democrats, are the activists. They are the true. I mean, anyone who shows up with those silly hats and all the crap that they wear. If you have actually gone to one of these conventions, it's the real. It's the left. It's the strong advocates. And what happened at our convention? Our convention, which was the Harris Convention, produced the strongest platform in the history of the Democratic Convention on Israel. On Israel. Now, for those of you who don't dine out on this stuff like I do, the platform is the document that's supposed to represent the position of the Democratic Party and the position of the presidential nominee. That was her document. Okay, these strongest. Don't take my word for it. Look at what the words were said. Number two, for those of you who were there, probably the most solemn moment of her convention was the decision to have Hirsch's family, the Hirsch Goldberg Poland family, speak at the Democratic convention. You'll say, well, of course they should. Don't kid yourself, because remember who is in that audience. And she made sure that you could hear a pin drop. There wasn't a protest. There wasn't a sign. It was the single. I was there. Some of you may have been there too. To me, having met the family multiple times and someone who talks to the hostage families every day, was literally the single most emotional thing for me. And that's what she made sure happened. And to be also clear, there was not on the other hand, which let's have another group of people speak at the convention. It wasn't. It was her convention. It was Hirsch's family. It was unbelievably well received, and it was not done by accident, my friends. That was her decision. Lastly, and I think it's important for you, and I say this about Emhoff. I don't want to play the Jew card. Well, she's got a You know, she's got a Jewish husband. Just so all of us understand, just like all of you got, many of you on this phone are rabbis. You have a board, you have congregants, and you are responsible to them. Make no mistake, folks. If Kamala Harris didn't want Doug Emhoff running around the country for the last almost 2.5 years, way before she was running for president, on talking about anti-Semitism, he would not be talking about anti-Semitism, okay? And he certainly wouldn't be ending his campaign talking about anti-Semitism. So when push comes to shove, when decisions are being made, when she's in the situation, when she's doing her own politics, by the way, and make no mistake, folks, this has not been without political cost. As someone who is a big supporter of making sure that the Palestinian people are taken care of, okay, not at the risk of the security of the state of Israel. There are people who think I am too left, okay, that I am too left. And the reality of this is she has stood her ground on the support of the state of Israel. I'll end it on something which I've never done in any of these Zoom calls I've ever had, because I'm trying not to play politics. And I'm certainly not trying to, and I really never talk about President Trump, because I just don't feel it's necessary. And I believe Harris's record speaks for itself. But I was really, really, really upset on what happened at Madison Square Garden, guys. Okay, listen, we are Jews. Okay, it's depressing to me. You know, being a Jew to me is obviously supporting the state of Israel, even those who are single issue voters. I get it. But to be a Jew, you cannot stand and watch that people talking about pitting people against it, calling people's names, talking about, you know, the idea of Puerto Rico, or talking, God forbid, using the word Nazi. We're Jews. We don't do that. And again, I don't want to, you know, I'm not trying to go after President Trump, but it doesn't make me feel good. And any of us who are on this call and say, well, is she going to be, just understand elections are choices. So I'm trying to make a very clear case of why I think she, given actions and what she has done and what this administration will do if she is elected in 7 days, and what I believe is the right thing to do for our country and for the protection of the state of Israel, and for those of us who are committed to being Zionists and are American Jews. So with that, Rabbi.
Thank you. Wow. Thanks, Tom. Very beautiful articulation of the case for Kamala Harris. I want to get into some very tough questions now, including the fact, by the way, to reassure you that last point that you made in regard to the Madison Square Garden rally will certainly be raised on Wednesday in our call with the senior advisor from the Trump campaign, because obviously it needs to be addressed. But
Rabbi, can I just, before you ask the question, it isn't the first time, guys. Okay, if I believed, okay, that some of the people, you are only identified by the people that surround you, right? That my anxiety here is, guys, this is not the first time. And let us not forget, again, I'm trying not to do this, but we are close to election. Let us not forget Charlottesville, guys. So any of you are on this phone and remember, you know, good people on both sides, the torches. We've got to understand as American Jews what's at stake here for our election. So again,
Sure.
probably not try to, and again, I don't believe everyone on the Republican Party believes what happened there. And there's been plenty of Republicans to denounce what's going on in Madison Square Garden. But I think it's important for us, all of us, to understand what's at stake here. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I appreciate that. But let me go straight to then something that your comments bring about. And that is, there have been a number of times when Vice President Harris has been interrupted by pro-Hamas demonstrators who have challenged her and said, stop the genocide. To the best of what we've seen, I don't believe she's repudiated them. More often than not, she said, yes, they have a point. As opposed to making a statement, trying to help to educate her to understand it. So how do you respond to that? And I'm going to ask a couple questions related to that, but let's start with that, if we may.
Okay. First of all, it was one occasion. I saw the clip, so let's not get carried away. One protester, if any of us who have been at these, I've been protested 100 times, okay? Where the kids are up and yelling at me and genocide. And basically, I'm not going to get into a back and forth with these kids. I want them out of it. And I then make the statements of which is, I am a Zionist. I am a former ambassador to Israel. And she has basically said over and over and over again, 5 billion times, that she supports Israel's decision not only to protect itself militarily against Hamas, that she has said 100 times that she supports the destruction of Hamas, the destruction of Hezbollah, to provide Israel with everything it needs to protect itself. I don't know how much more this woman can say. I mean, again, as a Jew, as a former ambassador of Israel, the idea that any of us would actually support her if we didn't feel in our kishkas that she has got Israel's back. So the argument that she doesn't scream at someone and say, no, it's of course it's not genocide. Of course, we all know how this started. We also understand that Hamas doesn't care about the Palestinian people, and Hezbollah wants to destroy Israel in the north. So she has not, and that's why I go back to the moments that she's in charge of, that she can control, the things that matter to me, okay? And what has come out of her mouth, and what's come out of her husband's mouth, and what's come out of those mouths of the people that are the closest to her. So this would be different if she hasn't 100,000, including at her Democratic convention, how she articulated the importance of the security of the state of Israel and giving Israel what it needs to protect itself.
Okay, so on that point then, certainly she has expressed Israel's right to defend itself. However, when the Biden administration, and you probably know more about this than any of us, withheld arms for a period of time, she indicated that she's from Israel. She indicated she supported that. She also said that Israel should not go into Rafah. And we see how that's what ultimately got to Sinwar and what got to hostages and things like that in the Philadelphia corridor. So help us understand.
Okay. So let's step back, okay, guys, because I supported this position as well. Okay. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have given Israel almost everything that they needed, including intelligence, weapons, and money. One of the reasons they didn't get the cash early on is that the other party slowed it down because of the Ukraine issues. Let's just make sure we all understand the facts here, okay? The only thing that this administration said no to, okay, was the 2,000-pound bombs in Rafah, okay? That is, and we were clear about that, okay? Everything else, all the other weapon systems, all the defense systems, everything that they got, we said no to because we were afraid, okay, somewhat justifiably, that because of Israel's position, that they would use those indiscriminately, okay? Listen, I love my friends in Israel. I know them probably better than most of you do on this phone, okay? Israel will never be the same, okay? Israel will never be the same. They have a right to defend themselves. But as their friend who's given them 99% of the stuff that they've wanted, including the moral support of this administration to protect the state of Israel in the Mediterranean against Iran and against Hezbollah, okay? That's what this administration has done. And the only thing we said to the prime minister, I wasn't there, obviously, is that this set of bombs, which, by the way, dropped, could have huge ramifications. The question on Rafah, we said clearly, just have a plan. If you're going to move these people, and by the way, he did have a plan. He ultimately ended up doing this the right way, and where he then moved the people from Rafah to another secure place. Guys, we are Jews, okay? We are Jews. I've said 100 times, we can kill people, that Hamas, which I'm totally supportive, and we can feed people. We can feed people, and we can be humanitarians. We can do both. And I think the position of this administration is we're going to defend Israel, individuals' right for security, to be able to get and kill the Hamas leadership, which they have done, and Hezbollah, but we can actually feed people in Gaza who are innocent, okay? And then people will say, well, this fight is not, please, with the Palestinian people. This fight is with Hamas, Hezbollah, and I think as Jews, as rabbis, as lay leaders, you have to send a message to your communities. We can do both. That's what it means to be American Jews, and that is what I care deeply about. And I think this administration has done exactly what they said they were going to do.
Since you mentioned about Iran, what can we expect from a Harris administration in regard to confronting the potential of a nuclear Iran? Just the other day, she said that Iran poses the greatest foreign policy threat to the United States. Yet under the Biden administration, there were restrictions that were lifted, and that there were funds that went to Iran, which had not been there previously, billions of dollars, if I'm not mistaken, which of course went to fund terrorists. So what would be the same? What would be different? In regard to policy.
Okay, so Rabbi, let me correct you on one point. Okay,
please
so
do. Please do.
First of all, as you know, that money didn't go directly to Iran. Just so we're clear, that money, and by the way, it wasn't billions of dollars. A couple $2 billion that went through free humanitarian assistance. Okay, that's number one. So let's be clear what the facts are. Number two, I think it's important. Again, actions speak louder than words. Okay, just on Friday, as we know, Israel did a very targeted attack on Iran and did a massive amount of damage to the infrastructure of Iran's military bases. Guess who was working with Israel? No, we didn't have the planes in the air, but make no mistake, just ask the prime minister, ask Gallant, ask anyone in the administration. We were involved from day one in conversations with the Israelis, not only about what they were going to do, but to make sure they were protected the next hour. Because listen, at the end of the day, Israel knows they need our support, and we have been there from time and time again. And now you asked me about Harris. Harris has said exactly what President Biden, the most pro-Israel president in modern time, in my humble view, she is not going to let the Iranians obtain a nuclear weapon. And I think if Harris is president or Donald Trump is president, we're going to have to confront the Iranians, okay? And I just want to make sure everyone understands this point, because I talked to my friends in the Trump administration, former Trump administration, who have given me grief about this question about, is she going to be soft on Iran or not? I asked them this following question. Was Donald Trump president for 4 years? I think the answer is yes. Did Donald Trump attack Iran in his 4 years? The answer is no. And there's a reason for that, guys. It's really hard to do. And it's really complicated, okay? And you can squeeze the Iranians, you can cut off their economic warhood, and you can try to create the environment, but it's clear both Democrat and Republican, whoever happens to be president, is going to have to confront the Iranians in a serious way, as the Israelis just did with the United States support, whatever we do.
So do you think that regime change or taking out nuclear facilities might be on the table in the future?
Every option must be on the table, guys. There is no question the cancer that is spreading in the region is a derivative of Iran, okay? It is the support of the Houthis and Hamas and Hezbollah and all the other offshoots, the PIJ and Gaza. There's no question about that, okay? But the thing we need to do is we need to send a strong message to the Iranians that we will not allow them to obtain a nuclear weapon, that we have Israel's back, both militarily, intelligence, in an attempt to try to make sure they understand. They got a very strong message from us, okay, that we are there. And by the way, can I just remind everyone's on this call, it was just a month ago that the 186 missiles were shot into the state of Israel, okay? And if those of us who have friends in Israel, they'll tell you that was one of the scariest nights they've ever had, because between the sounds of the rockets and the Iron Dome going off, and then ultimately some of the other weapon systems to blow up the debris, guess who helped Israel do this? The Biden-Harris administration did it in a way that I think ultimately shows to Israel we've got their back.
Beautiful, thank you. Let me ask you this. And again, trying to tread on uncomfortable territory in terms of.
There's nothing you can ask me. I'm not.
Good. All right. Okay. So there's some concern about the relationship between Vice President Harris and Prime Minister Netanyahu. The question as to whether or not that was a deliberate, snub on her part not to be there when he addressed Congress. And then after their meeting, when she came out and made a statement, it was talking about the difficult situation facing residents of Gaza, a message that has been repeated. So can you help us understand a little bit? Should that be an area of concern? Was this real? Is it something that the press is making up, et cetera?
Okay, so let me get some first. I probably know the Prime Minister better than most of the people on this call. I've had hundreds and hundreds of hours of discussions with him. He is a political animal, as you know. Listen, I think he has done a lot of great things for the state of Israel. We can debate in this last run some of his decisions, including judicial reform and some of the other activities, but he has been an exceptionally important leader of the state of Israel, and he should get credit for that. His decision to come to Washington, a few months before our elections probably was, something I probably wouldn't have done and advised him not to do it. But he, again, as you know, for those of you who know the prime minister, he knows more about our political system than I did, as we all know. I was a huge advocate of her not doing the State of the Union or his joint address. For her to be sitting there as now the nominee of the Democratic Party, jumping up and down like a beanpole, or God forbid she didn't stand up for one of his comments. As you know, it's a show, right? And he has every right to come. He was invited. I said, you should behave like the president. You should have a one-on-one meeting with him, as she did, as a president or potential president, and not to be the silliness of the show. And so I was a huge advocate of that. Okay, and so I think ultimately that's what she did. I think listen. I know Bibi Netanyahu. What Bibi Netanyahu wants is strength. Meaning he understands strength. That's how he operates. So for her being strong, very important to say to him, we have got your back. We've got your back, Mr. Prime Minister, as a representative of the democratic state of Israel. We have got your back. Also, Mr. Prime Minister, we also expect some things. That's okay. That is what the Prime Minister needs to hear. He hears that from half his cabinet, as you know. I'm very close to Gantz and Gallant and Gideon Saar, and he hears it from his people too. And so that's okay. We need to be, if we're going to have any shot of sending strong messages, that's totally fine. So I thought again, yes, I'm a bit biased. I thought she handled herself with as a president would, which is what people need to see.
So in that context, then, of her not appearing at the joint session of Congress.
Joint session.
Right. So you're the guy we should blame. Is that
100%? You can have all you guys call me and like.
I'm just kidding.
Listen, but I believe that. Okay. I mean, listen.
No, I understand, and you.
I worked on the Hill. I worked on the Hill for 10 years. I worked for the Speaker of the House. I've been to 100 of these events. Okay. It's as you know, it's like you've got the speaker, who's a Republican. He's jumping up and down every time there's an applause line. She's like either sitting there and people are like, oh my God, she's sitting there, she's not standing up. She's not. It's ridiculous. The whole thing is ridiculous. And you're running. She's now the nominee. She's the sitting vice president. She's the nominee to be the Democratic next president of the United States. She should have a formal meeting in the White House, in the West Wing, with the Prime Minister of Israel, and that's exactly what she did. And then go do a press avail after.
So let me ask you a question in regard to the influence of the you alluded to it a little bit when you were talking about the Democratic Party convention of the far left. Obviously, there is a concern in terms of the potential influence of the AOC and other members of the far left, who Democratic members of Congress, including, I just saw something briefly this morning in Times of Israel that Bernie Sanders has said that Harris administration would be very different in regard to the approach to Israel, and that he would have much more to say about it and much more influence and so on. So for those individuals who are concerned about the influence of the squad and of some of the top advisors from Obama's administration, you of course excluded, in terms of those who were pushing for the JCPOA treaty and so on. What do you say about that? And then I'm going to have a follow-up question on that. But in general, the influence of the squad and the left on the possible direction of a Harris administration.
Okay, so let's break this apart. Okay, as you know, there are people on the Democratic spectrum that are on the left, in the center, and on the right. And let me remind everyone's on this call, there are a lot of people in the same perspective on the Republican side. There are people on the far right that I think many of you on this call would not want to be associated with. Okay, and I don't want to begin to name them. But I think there are plenty of people you would say, oh my God, these people do not represent us. Maybe even some of the people who spoke at Madison Square Garden just 48 hours ago. So let us not judge either the Democrat or Republican Party by their extremes. Okay, please judge the people, okay, the candidates, and what they say. Okay, and what the vice president has said over and over and over again, that she not only supports the state of Israel to defend itself, that she supports the idea of a democratic Jewish state. She has her damn husband running around the country talking about anti-Semitism in a way that even I don't do it, okay? So I don't, listen, are there going to be voices on the left? Yes, there are going to be voices on the left. And that's okay. That's totally fine. She's the president of the United States. She's the president of the United States. And I think, just like I think that Donald Trump has voices on the right, although he seems to get himself way more associated with those voices from the right than she has on the left. And I go back, I think it's really, really, really important. Our convention, our Democratic convention, did you see any of those voices at our convention talking about Israel? You name me one. You name me any of those who had a time at our convention who were denouncing the state of Israel or questioning the idea of assistance, or in any way attempting to try to connect assistance to behaviors. Not one single person, okay? And that is because it was her convention, okay? And by the way, some of those on the left are my friends. I have no problem with having conversations with what people refer to as the left. Now, if they cross the line and they use anti-Semitic and tropes that it's appalling to me, screw them, okay? I won't deal with them. But if people have legitimate conversations about Israel and Israel's conduct, I'm more than happy to have the conversation. I can have the conversation with you. I'm all totally fine with it. But I think ultimately, at the end of the day, it's what the president of the United States says and the actions they do is going to matter.
Of course. So in that context, then, again, as a follow-up on this, specifically, we were talking about it in the context of political Democratic members of Congress. But what about within the context of advisors who and names have been thrown around? Some of them individuals who have a past. I don't want to name specific names, but there's some names that I understand have been thrown around of people who have connections with CARE and/or with Students for Justice in Palestine and other organizations that are inimical to the existence of the state of Israel. Are you at all, as the strong pro-Zionist, pro-Israel individual that you are, do you have any concerns about any of those potential individuals who may potentially be playing a part in the State Department?
Zero. Okay. At the end of the day, the jobs that matter is the National Security Advisor, who I won, the Secretary of State, okay, the Defense Secretary, but most importantly, what really matters is the President of the United States. Okay, guys, listen, I've listened to this nonsense for years. Okay, and the reality is again, let me just ask you, is there a possibility that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in their administration could have been more pro-Israel than they've been? If someone says to me, sure, they should have, they should have given the 2,000-pound bombs, or they should never have suggested to Bibi that he not go after Rafah. Oh, come on, guys. Okay. The reality is and again, I'm trying not to be overly political here, but I'm sure many of you on this call, if of a different president was in office, hypothetically, and that particular president, you can figure out who I might be referring to, had the political headwinds that she has faced vis-a-vis supporting the state of Israel. If you think anyone on this call that other president would have taken a different pivot, you're nuts. Okay, this is the election where strength matters. Okay, but her position matters. For those who are Jews, and I go back to this argument, I think I've been pretty clear about my view of how she supports the state of Israel. I think for all of us who not only believe that this is our most important issue, but let us remember ourselves, who we are as a people, who we are. We're Jews. We have to look around and look at our congregants and look at who we represent and to make sure that we're not going down a path that's going to rip us apart. Okay, it's going to rip us apart on fundamental issues. And again, I'm not trying to be that guy and like some liberal wokey guy. No, I'm like, I don't like it. I don't like even hearing the word Nazi. I don't like the word of extremism. I don't like people saying that, by the way, if I lose the election, it's going to be the Jews' fault. Who says that kind of crap? Pardon my French, I apologize. I mean, but it upsets me, guys. Who knows what's going to happen in this election? I think Harris will win. I have no idea. But I'm just telling you, as an American Jew, okay, and how I got brought, that's why I don't wear a kippah. I'm not as religious as many of the people on this call, but I think I have a modicum of credibility, okay? I have a modicum of creds. I think I did an okay job as ambassador. I care deeply about the security of the state of Israel, okay? Deeply. And I just think it is, as much as I care about that, I also care about being able to stand up and say, the people who represent us represent the country as a whole.
Thank you. So in regard to the issue of anti-Semitism, which has come up a couple of times here, and the not just anti-Semitism, but the anti-Zionism that's taking place and the demonstrations on college campuses and in cities, downtown areas where obviously, and we're learning that much of this is being funded through Iran, through Qatar, and through elsewhere, as well as many of the anti-Israel activities on college campuses. Have you had any conversations or any inkling as to whether or not anything would be done by a Harris administration? You've certainly spoken passionately about the advocacy of the second gentleman, Doug Emhoff, about this issue. But any policy kinds of things that might be done to make Jews feel safer than what we're all feeling these days?
You guys, I assume people understand. This is the first administration that has an anti-Semitism not only a platform but a legislation that they have advocated for, that they have put together a coalition that Doug spent a year and a half on. You should go onto the page and look at it. It's four pillars about fighting anti-Semitism, a whole government approach that he worked on for a year and a half. Includes, number one, education, which I think is important, what's going on in schools, and to make sure that the schools are being taught about what it is to be Jewish, to be what the importance of Israel. Second is security. Third is communities. It's a detailed plan, multiple page plan that the White House released almost a year ago or 9 months ago, that Doug spurred. This is Doug Emhoff. It was his thing. I mean, I'm sure you all have seen it. I mean, it was enormously important document, and not only that, but it's a full organization from DHS on the security to Department of Education. It's a total government focus. So you should go look at this at the policy stuff that was released. It's the first real statement that was done on anti-Semitism from an administration in a way that was actually documented and had strong policies applied to it.
So I certainly recall the document being developed and the discussion to it, but I haven't read it recently.
You should read it. You should read it because I think I encourage all of you to see this, because the words are interesting, blah blah blah, but it is all actionable. It's money, it's education, it's security, it's fighting hate. I mean, it's not a soft like, well, we all hate anti-Semitism. No, it's very real.
Right. It has to have teeth in it if it's going to be something that's implementable. And that's why I'm trying to ascertain, what kinds of things you think we could expect. But what you're saying is that certainly
it's a foundational document. You should all look at it. It will make all of us who care deeply about this topic of anti-Semitism actually feel quite positive about what there's a real full whole of government approach to fighting anti-Semitism. This has been Doug's thing. I mean, so I just want to remind people, last time I checked, he's sleeping with the president. Okay. He is the vice president's husband, who is a Jew, who decided not to go spend time on a whole bunch of stuff, to spend his time working to fight anti-Semitism. I don't know how much. I mean, maybe Melania is doing that now, me. But who has ever done this before? I mean, it's an absurd thought for those of any of you who are still questioning her commitment to the state of Israel. That it's like it would be like for any of us to have our spouse doing this with her like advocacy, pushing him to do more and more and more. And he is a real Jew. I mean, it's not like he's not playing it in daytime television. Okay, so it's important. So
okay, great.
I'm quite focused on this.
Great. One or two questions in the few minutes we have remaining, and that is within the context of the statements that President Biden has made of strong support for Israel, and those that Vice President Harris has made as well, including most recently after the Israel counterattack on Iran, which were all very supportive. There have been times when it could have perhaps been stated along the lines of the following, that Israel certainly is doing a fine job in terms of its IDF, and it is doing what it can to try and limit innocent Palestinian casualties. Correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe you know better than I. I'm not sure if that part has come out. And in the role of the president, the vice president, as a bully pulpit, it might help to calm the waters a little bit and deal with some of the anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism we've talked about. If there was some statement of reassurance on the part of the president, or we're talking about the vice president, to let the American public know that they're reassured that Israel, and in the conversations like along the lines of what you've had, that Israel tried to do what it can to limit casualties that are of individuals who are not directly involved as militants and so on. Can you just speak to that, please?
Rabbi, listen. I don't know how much more these two people can do in the support of Israel at its most important time. Okay, I don't think there's been a more important time since Harry Truman declared that Israel should be a state. What Israel is going through. Okay, you have a Democratic president. Okay, a Democratic vice president. They have basically gone to the wall trying to protect the state of Israel. Militarily, humanity, words, going to Israel, doing all the things you would want a president to do, and to be proud of it. I remember Biden came to Israel on his 10th visit when I was ambassador, and he came down the stairs and he walked across the tarmac and he went up under the podium and he looked in the camera and said, "You do not need to be a Jew to be a Zionist." Okay, come on, everybody. It's his vice president. And I try to put this in perspective, people. This actions speak louder than words. Okay? Actions speak louder than words. Someone needs to tell me on this call how this Democratic administration could have been more supportive of the state of Israel, the security of the state of Israel, given what we have done day in and day out, okay? And just ask anyone in Israel, okay? Ask anyone in Israel. And so my very fundamental belief is elections are choices, okay? Elections are choices. I hope what I have done is give people an understanding of when Harris has had to make a decision that was her decision, that she stood by the security for the state of Israel in a democratic Jewish state, okay? And you're going to have to weigh that decision of what she has done and weigh that with the consequences of another decision. Again, and I am a supporter of the Abraham Accords and all that. So believe me, that is all totally fine. I put this in the context of being, as I look at the Zionist rabbinic coalition, okay? This is what you guys do, okay? You need to think about this in the totality of what it's like to be a Jew, a supporter of Israel, in today's time.
Thank you. Tom, the Zionist Rabbinic Coalition, of course, is a nonpartisan organization, but certainly when you say that actions speak louder than words, I must say your words speak very loudly today. Your passion comes through, your dedication, your love of Israel, of the Jewish people, of America. It's very, very evident. And I want to thank you for taking the time to speak to us. Any closing words you want to share before we wrap things up?
No, Rabbi, listen, I admire what you guys are trying to do, okay? You guys care deeply. One thing I learned as a little Jewish kid in Minnesota is you got to get in the game. Okay, the people who sit on the sidelines and complain and kvetch, but don't do anything. You guys don't do that. You have your lay leaders, your community leaders. You got to get in the game, regardless if you're voting for Trump or you're voting for Harris or how you articulate it. It's important. We are, as Jews, we've got after November 5th, we've got to come together as a country. We have huge stakes here, guys. We have huge stakes for Israel. We have huge stakes for America. The world is looking at us, and we have enormous responsibility to the world and for those of us who are Jewish and care deeply about the state of Israel. Well, thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Tom, and thank you everyone who's joined us today for participating in this call, which really is consistent with our mission of strengthening connections between Israel and the diaspora through the programs that we offer, through our collegial support and education and advocacy. Just want to remind everyone we have our next call on Wednesday at 3:30 with Eli Kohanim of the senior advisor in the Trump campaign, former deputy envoy to combat anti-Semitism. These calls will be posted on our website, and please, we invite you to share them with others as well. And also just want to remind everyone the ZRC will be holding its next conference in Washington in May, and we hope many of you will be able to join us for that as well. Ambassador Nides, I know you have a tight schedule and you've got to get to the airport, so I want to be respectful of that. And again, I just can't thank you enough for such a wonderful opportunity to speak with you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Thanks.
Take care. Bye-bye. Thanks.